Moving to another pretty notable entrepreneur right now, Mark Zuckerberg. You know, Mark made this massive bet in transitioning Facebook to Meta, moving away from a social network to creating the metaverse. And I think he's bet billions of dollars or tens of billions of dollars on creating the metaverse. And so far, Meta has really gotten punished in the public markets, partially as a result of the downturn, but partially because a lot of the hoped for success in the metaverse, at least within the context of that company, has not materialized. Jake, I know you've invested in the space. Is the metaverse dead, or are we going to see some sort of resurrection here? And is Zuckerberg on the right track, or do you think there's actually needed a pivot right now in how we think about it?
I don't think the metaverse is dead. I would probably, as a meta observation, so to speak, I'd say this is a reasonable bet from his perspective, because you see the long arc of innovation is that some of these hardwares over the last 30 plus years have gone from desktop to laptop to mobile, and a lot would say that augmented reality, virtual reality would be the next on that path, right? And they're increasingly ubiquitous, they're increasingly immersive, they're increasingly part of our lives. And so it's not crazy to think, especially when glasses come out, right? Where you're almost RoboCop style. You put on the glasses, you can see through them, but maybe the three of us can be sitting in a room engaging with each other, right? For instance. And people oftentimes think of virtual reality, which is a little clunkier, fewer use cases. But as Oculus comes out with its Pro headset, which is already announced, as Apple comes out with the headset next year, I think we're going to see continued interest in this. I don't know if it's truly going to be the integral part of our lives that Zuckerberg hopes, but I think it's a reasonable bet, because what he's doing is he's standing against the innovator's dilemma, right? Where you get to be such a big company, and something is working, and that thing that is working, all the stakeholders have an incentive to just keep focusing on that, and then eventually somebody leapfrogs you because you're not thinking ahead. But he's investing downstream of consumer behavior, and that's a really important thing that startups can do, but oftentimes public companies can't necessarily. But because of the voting structure, which has frustrated some folks, he's able to. So I think the metaverse holds a lot of promise. It probably doesn't look a lot like what most folks think it would. And from Meta's perspective, I think it's a reasonable bet, at least in the medium term.
What do you think, Ben? What's your metaverse avatar right now?
That's what I wanted to get into. I was hoping we would go there. I have mixed comments here. First and foremost, more of us living, more in an alternate universe and taking advantage of the kind of products that will be offered in the metaverse strikes me as a dystopian situation. But from an investment perspective, there has been this trend, as Jake, outlines, of, further and further entrenchment into our lives and more time spent gaming and interacting virtually. I mean, my goodness, just think of Zoom and its competitors and how that's reshaped work life. It's going to be interesting to see. Again, I think if I could just, again, talk a little bit about the investment case for Meta, there's part of you that has to keep in mind the ability that they would have to just retrench and go back to the tried and true model that they have and pull those levers. And all of a sudden you have something that's really valuable and not that risky and trading at, pretty cheap price. And so, again, I sort of view it as this may be a disaster, for Meta in terms of the foray into the metaverse and the big expenses, but it may in the end be a blip, and they go back to the old Facebook and advertising and making a whole lot of money.